I'm Amai, and I post comics to Webtoon, which is usually a very pleasant experience in my opinion. However, sometimes Webtoon gets wrapped up in situations. And one such instance of these situations has just unfolded, which led to a massive onslaught of criticism being aimed towards Webtoon as a company, with some of these critics being none other than the comic artists actually contracted under Webtoon. So, what exactly happened to create such an uproar? In case you don't know, Webtoon is a webcomic hosting platform, webcomics being the umbrella term for digitally published comics. The company first started operating in Korea and then went on to further expand to the global market in 2014. They've since amassed a huge user base who come back weekly to read new comic episodes. The English platform of Webtoon offers both a self-publishing service, where users of any skill level can freely post their comics, and a curated selection of comics made by contracted creators called Webtoon Originals. As part of the Webtoon Originals contract, creators are paid in order to create high-quality webcomic episodes on a weekly basis, with the promise of promotional opportunities, brand deals, and the potential to reach millions. But that's where the issues begin. In early April, a now deleted Reddit user posted the following to r/webtoons. Beware the Webtoon Originals contracts. I was offered the Originals deal a few months back, but looked over it and thought it was extremely predatory. I have experience in traditional comics, so I'm well versed in rights and such. I couldn't believe what I was reading in my contract, so I contacted a few Originals creators to see if the stuff in my contract was also in theirs. I was shocked and appalled at what I discovered. Basically, the Webtoon Originals contract has evolved every year or so to become more and more predatory. These were the things in the contract offered to me, what I assume is the current and newest contract. If I signed this contract, all of these clauses would apply to my comic in exchange for being an original series. Webtoon would automatically have the ability to buy 100% of my IP. Previous Webtoon Originals creators didn't have this in their contract at all, so I believe it's a new thing. Apparently this is so if any series happens to do very well, Webtoon can just snatch the entire IP out from under the creator for a very low fee. And unfortunately, this has already happened to some creators. Webtoon would own my print publishing rights. This was something that immediately stood out to me. I had previously read some threads on Twitter by Originals creators that talked about printing rights, and with my own experience in traditional publishing, I was shocked and angry to see this. Digital publishers should not have print publishing rights, only digital publishing rights. If you didn't know, print publishing rights can be bought by publishers in a deal that can be anywhere from 5 to 6 figures. This means that if I signed the Webtoon Originals deal, I would be giving away my print publishing rights to Webtoon for almost free. There is a clause that specified they would pay me $2,000 for automatic ownership of my printing rights, which is again a huge ripoff when compared to the 5 to 6 figures. Webtoon would own all my merchandising rights. I wouldn't be allowed to make merch of my own comics. Not much to elaborate on here other than that this clause sucks. Webtoon would become my agent for print publishing and multimedia deals. This is highly unethical. An agent is supposed to be a third party with your best interests in mind. If Webtoon is my digital publisher and also my agent, it could just sell my rights to another one of its branches, like to the Webtoon Wattpad portion of the company that prints books, cutting me a crappy deal to keep costs down and pay me as little as possible. Not only were these clauses highly unethical, but the pay offered to me was also severely lacking. In conclusion, I'm still shocked and angry about the contract, and I'm saddened every time a new Originals deal is announced, because I know the creator has basically given up on all their rights just for an opportunity to be in Originals. Though I also heard that you can argue some of the clauses out if you have a lawyer on hand and can afford one, but not many creators do. I was told that it wasn't always this way, and that it only started in the last year or so after they hired some guy from Hollywood or something to deal with all of the IP stuff at Webtoon. I hope that if enough creators push back on these predatory contracts, Webtoon will reconsider these clauses. Finally, good luck and get some lawyers if you want to become an original series. This post went on to gain over 1,000 upvotes on Reddit with hundreds of comments discussing the contents. The post was then reshared to Twitter, where it really began to take off. It now has close to 20,000 likes, with countless Twitter users posting their own responses in the quotes. Chihiro Hao, the creator of Webtoon original series Raven Saga, said, "Be careful. I very strongly don't recommend signing with them. Why do you think I never promote my series anymore? I'm quitting and I don't want them to own my series after my contract is done. If the series don't bring them money, then they won't buy my IP. Hopefully." Hake, the creator of a few popular self-published webcomics, remarked, "My offer wasn't this bad, but it's why I declined on signing Your Wings and Mine to be an original. These contracts prey on inexperienced, desperate creators, and some negotiations go nowhere, especially without pricey lawyers. Webtoon may retract offers if you negotiate too much." Shiran J. Zhao, a best-selling novel author and icon, said, "WTF, I thought Webtoon was one of the better platforms." And quickly interrupting here is commentary MI. It is one of the better platforms, and that's the concerning part. Ref Rainbow, the creator of massively popular series Boyfriends, commented, "My contract is not even this bad, and I already want to kill myself." He then further went on to describe his experiences with the company through a series of tweets. "They have been a source of my emotional strife for years. They milked me for money and tossed me away once I outlived my usefulness. I think my mistake is me thinking I don't mind getting a lower pay if it means I'll be getting opportunities and support. But after signing away my rights, they just sit on it and do nothing and never listen to me. Working on the comic doesn't make me burned out. Even the hate comments don't make me burn out. It's dealing with the company that makes me lose all hope because they're supposed to be on my side, but are either unsupportive or flat out block my efforts to grow with the comic. Did you know that they stopped translating my Spanish version and refused to continue it at some point? I offered to pay for translations myself, and even then there was some pushback when I brought it up. Did you know they stopped acknowledging me publicly about 1 to 2 years ago? I made a return trailer for the comic and they refused to acknowledge it because you used the wrong logo. It didn't follow guidelines. There were no guidelines, by the way, and there are changes that they asked me to do 1 day before the planned release, after I had already postponed it. I'll talk about the ads another time. Anyway, bottom line is, do not sign with Webtoon, and if you're already there, don't sign any additional contracts like IP acquisition and merch contracts. It's all BS and empty promises. Ref Rainbow was the target of a lot of harassment a few years ago after animated ads of his webcomic Boyfriends were produced and shown to users all around the internet. Many criticized them for being cringy, poorly made, fetishizing gay men and the LGBTQ+ community, as well as various other things. Some of these criticisms came in the form of YouTube videos that went on to reach over 1 million views. However, the creator of Boyfriends never even approved of these ads in the first place, and Webtoon never did anything to help quell the harassment. I'll quickly interject here once more just to say that Ref Rainbow has been called out for some genuinely problematic behavior, but for the purpose of this video, I am going to leave that out, and you can research that on your own if you want. There were many other people coming out and talking about their less than favorable experiences with Webtoon. However, some were quick to point out how many of these creators were shocked at how bad the contracts had become since they had signed, with seemingly no one else confirming that they had actually been offered the same contract described in that Reddit post. So, skepticism began to arise on whether the information in that post was entirely true or not. Until a couple days later, where another now deleted Reddit user took to r/webtoons with the following post. I just found out that Webtoon can purchase my entire originals IP for pennies, and I'm going to make absolute dog in spite of it. Context: I signed with Webtoon like 2 years ago. I was like 20 and in the middle of university. My Webtoon is not out yet. I worked on this comic for quite a bit, obsessively, and not to brag, but the art quality is up there with some studios considering the amount of time I had to refine the story, characters, and art. For those who don't know, I was fine with the pay and the work if it meant I could at least keep a majority ownership of the IP, which is usually stated in the beginning. That was until I came across a recent post and actually shelled out money for a lawyer to review my contract. Webtoon literally slaps in an option to purchase the entire IP 100% for virtually nothing. After speaking with this lawyer just to quadruple check what I was reading and what he was telling me, I've decided that I'll now completely scrap the 15 chapters that I have as a backlog. The communication between Webtoon is sparse, and I've only submitted 1 episode so far. The user went on to proclaim that they're going to redo everything they've made in their comic, and essentially make it such poor quality that Webtoon would never wish to buy their IP. They even went as far as to say they'd get their friends who can't draw to make panels for the comic. Now, with no face or name behind the post, it's hard to verify its validity, but it did seem to be our second confirmation that a 100% IP purchasing clause did exist in a recent version of the Webtoon contract. However, through this whole ordeal, a certain party has stayed very quiet. Webtoon themselves. On April 10th, the comic news site Comics Beat published an article titled "Webtoon Originals Contract Draws Criticism from Creators." And this article actually contained a response from Webtoon. The Beat reached out to Webtoon for comment and received this statement. "We are aware of a post that misrepresents our terms in how we work with creators. At Webtoon, we've created multiple programs that allow creators to select the path to monetization that works best for them and their series. Our platform monetization models prioritize creators, ensuring they can build an audience for their webcomic and make money. Our terms enable creators to maintain ownership of their webcomic while bringing their story to life in a growing number of monetizable formats." Webtoon also provided some details on how the originals contract works. It requires digital exclusivity to the platform, lasting 3 years from the date of the series completion. This means that the series can only be featured online on Webtoon and not other Webtoon platforms, personal blogs, or webcomic sites or apps. While originals creators do receive money from Webtoon to start and maintain the series, creators in this program potentially maintain majority ownership of their webcomic and earn money through reader purchases, ad revenue, and other monetization mechanisms while their comics are featured on Webtoon. Comics creators can shop their project around to other websites or print publishers on their own after their exclusivity period with Webtoon ends. But 3 years after the last chapter of a series is not an insignificant period of time. When asked for comment, a Webtoon spokesperson pushed back against the claims made in the Reddit post, saying that most of what was described was inaccurate. For example, according to Webtoon, their contracts don't allow purchase of 100% of the IP. Webtoon denied that this had occurred in the case of OP or for any other Webtoon creators. Webtoon characterized their participation as being an investor in the work, with creators maintaining ownership of their underlying IP. According to a spokesperson, Webtoon's deal supports creators at every stage of the process, without any guarantee of the company recouping the costs involved with launching a new original series on their platform. Regarding the Reddit post's claims that upon signing with Webtoon, the creator would be ceding the ownership of their publishing rights to Webtoon, according to the spokesperson, Webtoon has an option to acquire the print publishing rights for a limited amount of time. Should that option be exercised, they will acquire the rights and creators will receive standard industry compensation, in accordance with business practices common in print book publishing in North America. As for merchandising, Webtoon describes the deal as an exclusive license to develop merchandising opportunities on the creator's behalf, with the creators receiving royalties. The deal is exclusive, they say, mostly to centralize efforts and to find, negotiate, and finalize merchandising/licensing efforts. As far as Webtoon becoming an agent for the comics creator/Webtoon series, the platform says that once again their contract simply describes an option to purchase multimedia, e.g. TV/movie and/or anime rights subject to industry standard compensation terms, with the creator receiving the majority of rights fees. Webtoon compares their role to being a producer, not an agent. Indeed, this is a fairly typical clause in many publishing deals that focus on media rights. Although, once again, how long the option applies for and whether the creators can get those rights back is a key element of any deal. Finally, Webtoon characterized the originals arrangement as one where Webtoon and the comics creators become business partners, working together to use their resources to find mutually beneficial opportunities to invest in creators and their work. Britt Seiss, a literary agent who represents Webtoon creators such as Kariuku and Graveweaver, responded to this Comics Beat article. I read the Comics Beat article and I personally disagree with how Webtoon contracts were characterized and how negotiations, as well as what standard, was described. But that's just my 2 cents. And further went on to say in a reply, I mean, I would personally think that a company's official response would paint them in the best light, but that's just me. What do I know? Another self-proclaimed Webtoon Originals creator made an Ask Me Anything post on r/Webtoons a couple days after the Comics Beat article was published. The answers the post creator gave largely lined up with what had been said in the Comics Beat article, leading many to speculate that the Ask Me Anything post might have been damage control. AKA, the post was supposed to quell rumors about Webtoon and restore good public opinion. While we obviously won't get confirmation on whether this was the case or not, the post did get deleted from the subreddit less than a day after it was first published. And that's where the situation stands at the moment. I think the first thing that's really important to point out here is that we haven't actually seen a Webtoon Originals contract. And without seeing a contract, we honestly have no way of validating the claims of either party involved. It may very well be that the truth of the situation lies somewhere in between Webtoon and the creators' stories. That being said, the strong response from Webtoon Originals creators does speak volumes. It's clear that regardless of the contract's contents, Originals creators feel dissatisfied with their experiences working under Webtoon. And I think at this point, people might be wondering, should we be boycotting Webtoon? This is a question I actually saw someone ask on the r/Webtoon subreddit. In my opinion, a full boycott may be a little excessive, but I do think that creators and consumers of webcomics alike should explore their options. Nowadays, there are so many different webcomic sites that you can use, such as Tappers, Global Comics, and Namikomi, and even more platforms beyond that which may not offer self-publishing. I do, however, think that the most important thing to do as consumers is support our favorite creators where possible, whether that may be liking episodes, leaving kind comments, fast passing, or even subscribing to tip jars like Patreon. For creators, this whole situation might be a harsh reality check, especially considering that many webcomic creators strive to become an originals author. But don't panic. First of all, I want to reiterate that we haven't seen a contract. And while many creators have warned against working for Webtoon, your priorities might be different from theirs. So if you do get offered a contract, I do recommend reading it through. And if able, get a literary agent or lawyer or anyone who's familiar with book contracts to read it through as well. But in saying that, becoming an originals author is not the only path to success as a webcomic creator. Nowadays, countless people have used a combination of Patreon and Webtoon Canvas to generate huge audiences and income off comics. And I'm talking literally thousands of dollars a month. And there's even more monetization opportunities when you expand to other websites as well. Not to mention, you can create printed versions of your comics and sell them physically too. That can be an avenue for huge success. You're not doomed just because you can't become an originals creator. And if you can become an originals creator, you're not necessarily going to be subject to hellish working conditions. So keep your heads held up high, fellow creators. I think anyone can take something from this situation. If you're a consumer, remember that corporations are not your friends and just want to make a dime off your time at the end of the day. Remember to support your favorite creators because they're often sacrificing a lot just to bring you entertainment. And for any creator out there, I think it goes without saying that you should read your contracts, especially when things like IP is at play. But for now, I think that's about all I want to say. So thank you for sticking with me. I know this was a pretty long video. I admittedly love video essay style content, so it was interesting to make this. It was definitely more work than I thought, especially on my throat. If you enjoyed or found something interesting, let me know with a like and a comment. And if you found this unbearably long and boring, also let me know in the comments because I am all for feedback. I am very new to this whole YouTube thing. If you did enjoy this, maybe consider subscribing too, as I plan to make many more webcomic related videos, including covering more Webtoon drama, if this video is well received, of course. Anyways, that's all for my rambles. Thank you for watching until the end. I hope you have a lovely morning, day, evening, or night. And I'll see you next time. Bye-bye! Common in print book. This is so hard to read.